Be the Talk, episode 238, featuring Arpan Yagnik. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Arpan Yagnik. Arpan, are you ready to talk?
I am ready to rumble.
Action inspired by creativity is Dr. Arpan Yagnik's mantra. A creative and critical thinker, Dr. Yagnik is a natural teacher and therefore has been a positive influence on professionals and students alike. Dr. Arpan Yagnik, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nathan, for having me on the show.
So your talk is called Creative Aerobics. It was over at TEDx PSU Erie, and you mentioned a whole bunch of creativity exercises, 4 of them. One that talks about what things are, another that talk about what things aren't, another that investigates the relationships between things, and yet another one that assigns new meaning to things. That's basically the root of your talk, but please take us behind your talk of creative thinking and creative aerobics.
Absolutely. You have summarized it very well, even better than me, I would say.
Well, it was right there on your slide.
Yeah,
it was real easy to take.
Creative aerobics is something that I was taught by Linda George. This was back in 2007 when I was at my MBA program at MICA in India, and we were taught this course mainly in terms of creating advertisements and other creative output. And for some reason, it stayed with me. I never used it to create an advertisement per se. But, it was a tool to me. It was a strategy to me. And I actually utilized it to steer my life into a direction that I wanted. And I'm so very happy about it. So actually, one of the things that you mentioned, the last one, the Creative Aerobics 4, it's the creating new meaning to existing phrases or situations. I actually used that when I was working for Sony Corporation in India, and I used that technique to sort of redefine what my job was. And the new definition that came out, I was not happy with that. And therefore, I took a different turn, and from marketing and sales, I went on towards studying women's health and menstruation, and now I do advertising. So, creative aerobics, it has been a very, very integral part of my life. Creative aerobics is a set of 4 interrelated exercises. They are very simple. You don't really need any prior background or understanding. One of the best things about this is that you take the focus away from the result and just put it on the process. So you just submit to the process. And the process is the 4-step process, very simple and interrelated. It starts with the first one, which is something that you're used to doing. It is finding facts, where you find some existing facts, maybe known, some unknown, unusual facts about it, and you make a list of it. And from there, these facts itself, this process of diving deep to find those hidden gems about the situation or the product, you get a lot of insights. The second one is where you move into the what it isn't aspect. We all are in a what it is bubble, but there is a bigger, larger, and in my opinion, better bubble of what it isn't, what could be, what if, that exists beyond that. But we don't usually or typically move in that direction because it is unknown. There is a lot of uncertainties. There's ambiguity over there. So it's scary, and fear dominates us. It prevents us from moving in that direction. So we do not do that. But hopefully, using these exercises many times and applying them in your life, it allows you to tolerate ambiguity, to be fine with uncertainty, and not be like, you don't freeze out of the fear of that unknown and uncertain. Out of the four, the second one is moving into the what it isn't, where you start giving new names to the existing product or the situation. The third one is my all-time favorite. It's finding similarities between dissimilar objects or situations. And the example that I used during my TEDx talk is finding similarities between a cat and a refrigerator. I mean, they're both very, very different. There's nothing similar between these two entities, and it's just completely different. But
what do you find similar between a cat and a refrigerator? That sounds kind of interesting.
So I'm glad that you asked me the question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse it, but I'm going to change the question. So in your mind, Nathan, what are some of the similarities between a cat and a refrigerator?
Well, that's why I asked you the question. I'm not having any come to mind. I mean, I guess they both, this is disgusting, but they both can store food in different forms. That's really the only thing. And I'm trying to think of a nice way to say that on the podcast for all my listeners who are eating lunch right now. So that's part of the hesitation, but that's the commonality.
Yeah. So that's a great starting point.
Oh, and here's another one. They have insulation.
Oh, see, there you go.
Okay, so then
it's just
we can find
matter of changing the question and then putting it back. So if you ask the same question, you cannot expect a different answer. So if you change the provocation, the stimulus, the answers that you get are completely mind-blowing. Another one, like the cat and the refrigerator, they both have tail. Both a T-A-I-L and a T-A-L-E.
Okay.
Right? Both cats and refrigerators have stories about them. Right?
Gotcha.
So, and you can keep building on these things. I have an ongoing, a challenge to my students that I have $100 bill in my pocket, ready to be given to anyone who can find two different objects that have nothing in similar between them. And that $100 bill is still in my pocket. So, that's my all-time favorite one. This is the one that is, a very high impact one where it suddenly makes you realize, oh my goodness, didn't think about it this way, but yes, there is such a vast, what it isn't, that bubble that exists. And the journey is rewarding. It is fun. It's enjoyable process. The last one is, again, giving new meanings to existing phrases and situation, which is the one that I use. But the example that I give is that I woke up today morning and finished all my cereal. So who am I? A serial killer. So
you
not
killed that cereal, just like the cat.
Yes,
just like the cat digesting that cereal.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that happens in this process is that you start befriending ambiguity, which is very, very important for you to make that transition from what it is to what it isn't. So, life just changes drastically. Every time I talk to people, I ask them, how many of you are doing things that you actually love to do, actually want to do? There'll be only a few people in the room that'll raise their hands. I wonder what is stopping them. They are all stuck in their what it is bubble.
For sure.
Maybe they are afraid of their ambiguity, of the ambiguity, the uncertainty, the unknown, the risks associated. But the true joy and the fun is in the what it isn't. But unless you start acclimatizing yourself, befriending that uncertainty and ambiguity, it is very hard for you to make that transition. And so in my mantra, action inspired by creativity, I use these techniques to help people befriend some of these things and apply these creativity techniques, be it their profession or their personal life. It is something that a mother can use. Like moms are very creative by default because they find all these unique and novel ways to feed their kids, the greens, the veggies. People in their professions also use these techniques. So these are not restricted to creative industries, mainly advertising and things like that. There's a lot more that's going on where these can be applied. It's a process. A process can be put into different areas and aspects. So I am actually currently using some of these in social change development. There is a leadership model that I have created, which is sort of inspired by creativity and things like that. So I am expanding the scope beyond just advertisement and advertising and taking it further into different areas and things like that.
All right. So Talk Universe, if I can summarize everything that Arpan is talking about, embrace the ambiguity. And we're going to be back with more of Arpan Yagnik on the Blitz Round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with the Blitz Round. We are talking to Arpan Yagnik. I am about to ask him a couple either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent PSU Erie talk. Are you ready, Arpan?
I am ready.
All right. Were you invited or did you apply?
I applied.
Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
I am actually a big-time improviser. I cannot stand scripts and I cannot keep to them. I need to feel the room. I need to feel the audience, and I'm a chameleon when it comes to that. But I had to stick to the script for the most part, but I did improvise quite a bit.
Were you an opener, a closer, or in between?
I was towards the end, so I think maybe second last person.
Okay. Any advice for second to the last?
It doesn't matter where you are because you're speaking to an audience that is in the room, but you are also speaking to an audience that is going to watch your talk in a recorded format. And for them, you are the only talk. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really matter. You are the only talk. So just go with the same gusto and enthusiasm as if you are the first or the last.
Arpan, what is a tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
Something that helped me is always there is in the audience, there's a couple of people or a few people who are looking at you with this curiosity, intent, with a smile. Stick to those people.
Speak to the light. That's how I heard that said. Speak to the light.
Absolutely.
What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
So during the creative aerobics is a very interactive process where you involve, even earlier today, you were involved in giving some suggestions. So, but in the TEDx talk, there was no possibility or avenue for the audience to be really involved. But the way it was structured, the audience was so much wanting to involve. So they were raising their hands and they were saying things that, oh yes, this, oh yes, that, or this is also similarity, and I kind of had to ignore them. And it was heart-wrenching for me to ignore the audience that I'm talking to and just to keep going. But that was a little bit strange and challenging, I would say, because I was essentially breaking their hearts.
Well, you got the room moving, and we've been enjoying this blitz around with Arpan Yagnik. His talk is called Creative Aerobics. It's a TEDx PSU Erie talk. And if you want to check out that talk and see the audience interaction, you can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com, and we will have a link to that, as well as we will have Arpan's LinkedIn profile. We'll have a link right there so you can link in with him and see all the amazing work that he is doing as well. And in a moment, we're going to be right back with the 10-second final word of advice for Talk Universe. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back. It's time for the final word of advice with Arpan Yagnik.
Say, check out the book, Creative Aerobics, Fueling Imagination in the 21st Century. It's available on Amazon. And let your life be inspired by creativity. Liberation and emancipation awaits you, my friends.
Arpan Yagnik, thank you so much for coming on the talk and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you, Nathan, for having me.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.